In this video, I'm going to show you how to make this little monkey out of a wood peg doll, a dowel, and a hanger. Let's get started. So we're just going to need a few supplies to make the monkey. We need some of these little peg dolls, and I usually get these from Amazon. You can get them from any hobby store. This one, I actually get a pack of these. Usually comes with about, I think, 20 of these. And I don't pay a whole lot. We're gonna need a dowel. This is a 3/16 of an inch dowel, and it's a foot long. This is just gonna be for the legs and for the arms. I like to use a small piece of leather, and I'm gonna be cutting small pieces out for the ears. These little leather rounds are just real thin pieces of leather and very inexpensive. I'll put some information in the description of the video for you. Where to find these. You can actually use anything really. You can use a button and cut it in half. You can use a thin piece of wood, but I like to use leather because it is a little bit bendable and it's very easy to attach to the wood. You're also going to need some of these little eyelet pins that are made for jewelry. These are going to be used for the hinges, for the elbows, and for the knees and the shoulders and the waist. Okay, let's start with the peg doll. Now the peg doll is 2.5 inches tall. I don't like it that tall because once you put legs on it, it's going to be a little bit too big. So I like the body to be right to about there. So let me take a look real quickly here. With a little bit, I decided on making it 1 7/8 of an inch. So let me just mark this here. Whoops, wrong tool. I'm just going to mark it right here. Okay, we're going to take this over to the bandsaw. We're going to cut it on this line. Once we do that, we're going to clean it up with a sander, and we'll attach the arms, the legs, and everything else. Okay, so when we saw this, I'm not going to just stick it in the saw and go straight through because it has a tendency to want to pull to the side, and it'll cut at a very strange angle. So what I like to do is I like to actually turn on the saw, and then I slowly spin it so I get a more even cut. I'm letting the tool do the work here. I'm not forcing it. And that allows me to get a pretty even cut. So this is what it looks like, and you can see the body doesn't look like it's too tall, but once we put the arms and the legs on, remember this is a monkey, so we don't want too big of a torso. We want a shorter torso, the longer arms and the longer legs. Okay, so now I'm just gonna take this piece here and I'm gonna round off the bottom there. The first sander I used gave it a nice rough shape to it. It has a very coarse grit to it. This sander here I'm gonna use to clean it up a little bit more. And after I finish with this sander, I'm gonna take a piece of sandpaper and sand it down even more with my hand. Okay, so I've cleaned it up pretty well here. Now, if you look at it, it looks like it's a real small head and torso, but once we add the legs, it's gonna look really nice. So I've got two different pieces of sandpaper. This is 120 grit, so it's a little bit more coarse than this, which is 220 grit sandpaper. So I'm going to start with this just to smooth it off a little bit more there. And again, it doesn't need a whole lot because with this last sander that I used, it really kind of shaped it nicely and smoothed it out quite a bit. I'm just trying to give it a nice, smooth finish there. That feels pretty good. I'll set that one aside, and then now I'll go on with the 220 grit sandpaper. Yeah, that looks good. I think that's going to do it. So there it is. Now we're going to actually locate where we want to put the arms, the legs, and the eyes, and then we'll attach the arms and the legs and the eyes. I always like to start with the legs, because it gives me an idea of where I really need to put the arms. I like to put the arms directly in line with where I put the legs. That said, this is where I'm going to mark it. The legs, I'm going to put, let's see if I can get it for the camera here. One leg there. And the other leg right here. I like to put the legs closer to the end because, or the edge of the body, because if you put it too close to the center, it just doesn't look right. But if you put it closer to the edge, it appears to be more of like what the monkey's body would look like, or even a person or a human being. We don't have our legs, real tight between our torso. We have it at the edge of our hips there. All right, so that's where I want the legs. One on this side, one on this side. For the arms, you want to keep it real close to the neck, because if you start putting the arms down here, it's just going to look awkward. So if you put the arms low like this, it's just not going to look right. But if you put the arms closer to the shoulder, that's really what a shoulder would look like. So that said, I'm going to take where I have put my leg, where I'm going to attach the leg, and I'm just going to go straight up and make a marking right below the head. I'm going to do the same thing on this side, right below the head. And if you can see that, the next thing I do is I just kind of put my finger nails right there, and if they look like they're even, oops, then I know I'm okay. So in this case, they look like it's okay. I like to take a drill bit with a point. You'll see it's got a real sharp point there. You can use a thumbtack, you can use a push pin, you can use a nail, anything that's going to be able to start what I like to call a pilot hole. So I'll start with the legs here. I'm going to poke a hole right in there. This is going to be my pilot hole, which is where I'm going to drill the hole to be able to put in the jewelry eyelet holes, and we'll get to that later. That's going to allow the monkey to have some joints. So again, I'm just kind of poking a hole, or pushing a hole into where I've made these marks for the arms and the legs. There it is. Arms and legs, arms and legs. Now we're going to drill the holes, and this drill bit is the smallest I could find. It's 1/16 of an inch. And because it's so thin, I actually had to purchase this little collet here. It's an extension to this chuck. It's like a miniature chuck that I put this little drill bit in. I added the green tape because what I'm trying to do is determine where or how deep I want the holes to go. So I only want the holes to go about that deep. Now, does it have to be a certain measurement? No. I just prefer this because when I put the pins in, I don't want it to go any further than that. Now, this is where those little pilot holes that we created come in handy, because all I need to do is just stick the drill bit directly in there and push. We'll do that for all 4 joints. Just up to the tape. Okay, we've got all 4 holes here. Now it's time to add the joints. One thing we also want to do is create the legs and the arms. And the reason why we want to do this first before we do the joints is because we need to drill holes in here as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure out what I want the legs and arms to be. Then I'll take the drill press again and we'll drill those holes as well. For the legs, I've decided to make them 1 3/4 of an inch. And let me show you how long that's going to be. So right here is 1 3/4 of an inch. From the bottom of the monkey, it's going to be right about there. There's going to be a little bit of a joint there, so they're going to hang down pretty low. On monkeys, I like the limbs to be a little bit longer because monkeys have long arms, they have long legs. So I'm going to do the legs at 1 3/4, and I'm going to do the arms at 1 1/2 inches. So I've made some markings. Now let's take it over to the bandsaw. This is my 1 3/4 cut. And all I do is butt them up together at the bottom and do a second one. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to clean up the edges here so they're not so rough. So now that I've got the limbs rounded off, I'm going to take my drill bit again. Again, you can use a nail or a push pin. And all I'm going to do here is I'm going to poke a hole in the center of the dowel as close as I can get to create a pilot hole. So I'll do that for all four. Close to the center as you can, you'll see. Because when we drill that hole, we don't want the drill bit to go off to the side and come out of the side of these little dowels here. Okay, so for the drill press, the same thing. We've got the pilot holes. All I'm going to do is once I power on the drill press, I'm going to push up until I hit that green tape. I like to keep my fingers low enough so that in case the drill bit does come down through the dowel, I'm not going to get my fingers. There we go. We've got all four now. Okay, for this portion of the project, we're going to need these little jewelry eyelet pieces here. These are made for making jewelry, but I like to use them for creating joints. So if we take the monkey's body, we have an idea of how deep that's going to go. So it's not going to go that deep. Now that being said, what we need to do is you need a pair of wire cutters and a pair of needle nose. In this case, it has both on there. So what I like to do is the depth of what that hole was is how long I'm going to cut this little wire here. But I'm going to give just a tiny bit extra. And the reason why is because I fold it over, and I'll show you in a minute here. First, I'm going to cut it off. Now you'll see, well, let me show you. So if I were to take this piece here and put it inside of the leg hole, you'll see it doesn't go all the way in. There's still a little bit of distance between the body and the actual eyelet. So that said, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this piece here and be a little patient here. What you need to do is bend it over. Okay. Bend the piece over. And I like to tighten it real tight there. Whoops. So that the piece now looks like that. And that's going to make it so that when we shove it in, there's some tension on there and that it won't easily fall out. So I need to create 8 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 4 more for the legs. But I can almost guarantee that there's going to be one of these that actually fails or bends in properly, and you're going to have to create another one. So I'm just going to create some of these real quickly as we go along here. All right, so there we are. We have 9 pieces here. I made one extra in case one bends too easily. You never know. I might even have to make an additional one. All right, so now let's put them into the body and into the legs, and then I'll show you how to attach them. For this part, I'm going to just use some wood glue. This is the Tight Bond. I don't need a whole lot, just a small little dab there. And all I'm going to do, first I'm going to start with the body. I'm going to grab these one at a time. You'll see I'm kind of just grabbing it like that. I like to grab it as deep as I can or as far down as I can, because if I go too much to the top, it's most likely going to bend. So I actually like to go right where that little, camera probably doesn't pick it up, right where that crease is. So I'm going to dab it into the wood glue, and I'm going to push it into one of the leg holes. See, that goes in. And you'll notice that I actually put it in this direction because when I attach the other piece, I want it to swing like that. So I've got the legs. If you're looking straight at it, the loop is, flat to S. So now let's get another one here. Oops. Okay, again, I'm just going to grab it from there, dab it in, and I'm going to push it into that. See, there's one I messed up. And I'm going to push it in. I'm going to just twist it. Okay. So I've got two pieces. That's what it looks like. Push that into where the arm joint is. And it's better to, give it push it in just a little bit at a time. Don't try and do one fast shove. A little bit, a little bit, a little bit. Okay. Dab that in, the glue, and push it in. Again, I like to push in a little bit at a time. There's no reason to rush, because if you do, that happens. See how that bent? So I'm just going to take that one out, grab a new one. Okay, push it in a little bit at a time. There it is. Okay, so this is what the body looks like. These are the joints. And then the next thing we're going to do is put them into the arms and the legs. So I'm going to start with the legs. We've got the hole here. We've got I call them hinges, but really they're what the joints are going to be. Again, I like to put it real deep into the needle nose if possible. Dab it into the glue. Push it in. I like to actually open them up slightly because that's where I'm going to actually hook in to the the hip or the shoulder. And I also know where that opening is because when I grab it with a needle nose, I'll grab it so that the bottom is at the bottom of the needle nose. Dip it in. Grab my other leg here. Push that in. And open it up. I just open it up slightly, enough for me to be able to hook it in. I'm going to close it up. Now, when you squeeze it very gently, because this wire here from the jewelry eyelet will bend very easily. So you don't have to go crazy, just a real light close. So you see what we've got so far? We've got the legs. And now let's do the arms. All right. Dipping it into the glue. Pushing it in. And then I open up the eyelet slightly. Same thing for this last one. Dip it into the glue. Push it in. And oops, open up the eyelet. All right. Close that up. Just be patient with this. Now, the next step that we're going to do is we are going to figure out where we want those eyes. Okay, so I've kind of been thinking about what I want to use for the eyes. And these are just sewing needles. So I went into my sewing kit. And I think what I might do here is I might use push pins as the eyes. Let me get another black one. And maybe it'll look something like that. And then we'll add the ears on. All right, another option I have if I don't want to use these sewing needles is buttons. Now, these ones are pretty large, but it might look kind of cute. So I'm going to drill holes where I want the eyes. And if I change my mind later, all I need to do is just take one of these buttons and glue it right on top of the hole I made. Now I'm going to be painting the body so that it looks something like this. Just trying to freehand it. But the body's going to look something like this. Or the paint job, I should say, is going to look something like this. Okay. It's going to look something like that. So this will be a lighter color, this will be a darker color, and then the eyes will look something like that. Can you see that? So that said, I'm going to put one eye here and one eye here. Let's see how it looks. Looks okay. Give it a once over. Yeah. And again, if I change my mind, I want to put buttons, I can still put the buttons. You can use anything. If you want to just paint the eyes, that's fine too. All right, so I just drilled the holes for the eyes right here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint it first, and then I'll put the eyes in. One thing I always like to do, you don't have to do it, but I like to do it, is I like to actually put a hole right on the very top of the head. And the reason why, let me show you, is I like to be able to hang it. So if I put a hole there and I use one of these little jewelry eyelets that we used before and put it right there, you can use it as a Christmas ornament and hang it on the tree. You can hang it on your rear view mirror, anywhere as a decoration. You don't have to put the hole up there. I like to, but again, it's up to you. So again, I'm just adding one additional eyelet at the top of the head because I like to hang these. There it is. Okay, what do you think so far? Pretty cute, right? The next thing we're going to do is we're going to cut out the ears and glue them on. For the ears, we're going to use this little piece of leather. All right, so this I'm just going to freehand. I really don't know how big I'm going to make them just yet, so I'll just freehand it. Keeping in mind, monkeys do have big ears. Looks probably about right. Create a little space here. So it looks something like that. I'm going to try to just trace it here. Let's see how we did. I think I cut a little too deep. It's not bad. Dip it in the glue. Place it on. And put it on. One thing I almost forgot to mention, one of the most important things is the tail of this monkey. So we've got the monkey, but right now it doesn't have a tail. So what we're going to use for a tail is a simple coat hanger. We're not going to use too much of it. I'm simply just going to use one small piece. In fact, I'll cut it off now. I'm just going to use maybe I'll take about 4 inches, but I probably won't use all of that. I'm going to find a drill bit that actually is the same thickness as the coat hanger. I'm going to drill a hole and I'm going to bend this so that it looks like a monkey's tail. So what I'm actually going to form that now. So I know that I'm going to drill it in probably about 1/2 inch, maybe a little bit less. So I'm just going to bend it. So the way I want this tail to go is I want it to go out of the body like that. And then I'm going to have it come out, around, and then back at first. I think I'll go with that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a hole right in the bottom of his back. First, I'm going to put the pilot hole in, and I'm going to drill. There we go. I think that might work. Let me just glue the tail in. All right. Okay, so I've glued the tail in. Now we just got to wait for all of the glue to dry. So I've got the ears that are drying, the tail that is drying. The very next step is the paint. Okay, I've given the monkey a little bit of time to dry. All the glue is dry. This is what it looks like. The front, the side, the back. Now it's time to paint the monkey. Here's the monkey. The next step is gloss, and then we're going to put the eyes on. So this is the gloss I'm going to use. It's the Deco Art Dura Clear Satin Varnish. Shake it up a little bit. I'm going to put at least 2 coats on here. So I'm going to draw the nose and the mouth so that when I put the 3rd layer of gloss, it'll seal it in there. So first I'm just going to draw it on with pencil and see how it looks. It's important to draw with pencil first, because if you do draw the pencil on first and you don't like it, you could easily erase it. But if by chance you do mess up, your other option is to repaint the lighter color brown and start over. I'm going to gloss it one more time, and then we're going to put the eyeballs in with glue, and then it'll be ready to go. About as long as I need. So right about there. I like to hold both sides because when I snip it, I don't want it to fly out. All right, now I've got my 2 eyes. I'm just going to grab some of this wood glue here, this Tight Bond. And I'm going to shove it in the eye socket. There's one. There's 2. Here it is, the final result. Here's our monkey. What do you think? I think it turned out pretty cute. Listen, if you enjoyed this project, please do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Also, leave me a comment. Let me know what you thought about this project. Let me know also what you want to see me build next. I hope you enjoyed this one. I'll see you on the next project.